a new owner, so to speak. What's your pleasure, folks?
I'll make a motion to approve pending fire marshal inspection.
Seconded that we recommend approval for that conditional use, pending fire inspection, caveats, Neil, if you have please.
They're typically, again, it's not transferable. Obviously, if you move, it goes to another spot. And then if you cease the operation for a period of 6 months or longer, you have to reapply. Those are the, and then you may want to get with the fire marshal that.
Any questions?
Council will hear this Monday night.
You folks have any
I'd like to
questions?
tip to that. I remember there was an issue over there.
Any further discussion on the issue? Hearing none, we are ready for a vote. Sorry. Yeah, hearing no further discussion, I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Both same side. Motion is carried. Next item, vacation enforcement street order leasing LLC on South Davison.
Okay, before you have some, you have a drawing, this is recorded and submitted, this is on page 6. You can see that he's looking at construction. I'll let him represent what he's doing. On page 6, you can see a drawing that he's submitted it out towards the east into Davison Street. And then they also, on page 7, you can see a map kind of showing exactly where the property is. I know that's a black and white, but you kind of see the border of the property there as well. And the council is going to be considering a vacation petition at their next regular meeting. However, the reason why it's for you is just to provide any commentary or recommendations so that the council can make a decision at their next meeting. So that's more. Now, the property is zoned central business district, so there's no setback required. So, however, as you move the property line, then that's what this is. So there'd be no variance required because we have a 0 yard setback. Anyway, but is Mr. Porter here? Yes. I kind of paraphrase what you're looking at.
Talk to us, please, about what's going on.
I'd like to put a dock on the east end of the building. So this would end up being similar to the vacation, similar to what Coca-Cola did. It would leave room for 4-foot sidewalk. My understanding, there's no plans in that area in the 5-year plan for sidewalks, but it would still be there. Our reason for putting it on that end of the building is we can pull out onto Ash Street there and back in and not block traffic like happens over at the Daily Republic. When we come in on the other street, which is what we do now, about 70% of our loads come in on our own carriers, so we don't have a problem backing in. Some of these over-the-road truck drivers I have now, I think it'd be safe to say 25% of them don't even want to back up. And on a Friday afternoon, we had one of them take the corner of our dock area out. And this is, we want to put it on that side, then we won't block traffic. We can put it alongside the building where we block traffic. So, guess that's it.
Thank you. What's the thought? Engineering.
I think last time you were here, you mentioned there was another sidewalk that would be the same, similar width that you had seen already done.
Over at Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't know what the name of the street is. Waller?
Wait, it's Kimball.
Kimball.
Curbside sidewalk for you, I think.
And we've done it in the past to accommodate businesses. I think it would work with this one as well.
That's not a real heavily trafficked area there except for your traffic, is that not?
No, there's considerable traffic on the east-west street there.
That's railroad. That's
Is
railroad.
that railroad? Okay.
But the one you want to vacate really isn't
Yeah.
railroad.
That's the side street,
Right.
railroad
Right.
answer or something like
Yeah.
So, well, in front of your place is pretty good traffic, but on the
Yep.
sides of it,
Yep.
it really is.
No.
think that is actually, where's Don?
Well, there you are.
It would have to go to the city council for vacation, the portion of the building lounge.
Right.
Yeah, and you get that all under control.
Yep.
I would have suspected so. Wouldn't have suspected anything else.
In reality, he's not going to be bothering Davidson Street. The dock is actually going to be on the other side of the curb. It's not like he's coming out of the street.
I got you mixed up with Ted Danson.
We have requested for the building to be given to the section as easy as possible. And give it back to some of the drivers may not be experienced as you guys see coming into the town. Here's what it is. So this way,
We don't have an official position on this.
It's up to you.
Not
required.
Yeah, not required to have an official position, but if you would want to make a motion to let the council know that we have discussed it and see or don't see it as an issue, I think that would be appropriate.
I would make that motion that as far as commissioner's position.
Okay? We have a motion and a second, to let the council know that we do not feel that there's any, significant concerns there. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, plan approval for CAP properties at 1022 North Main Street, zone central business.
Okay, this is, reason this is for you, again, central business, and, visiting with the building official, this is gonna require a building permit. And I've also put in the parking requirements out of the ordinance, just for your reference, and then there's also a letter attached on page 11. Parkwest, the owners of Parkwest, which is in the letter here, acquired that building that is directly to the north of them. That used to be that I can't think of the name of the business was in there, but nonetheless. And they're looking at leasing out that portion of that building to a proposed, or to a church. And then that drawing is on page 13. And my understanding is they visited with building official and fire marshal and obviously myself, to convert, or to do that. It is zoned properly for this type of facility. However, parking is somewhat of a challenge, and what they're asking for is, because they are required to have off-street parking, and it doesn't sound like it's a large congregation at this time. And my understanding, according to the letter, this is almost as a temporary use for a shorter period of time. So what they're asking for, one, is obviously to have plan approval, and two, is Parkwest is willing to accommodate them, with some type of a, on the other side. And they do have, some, Parkwest has one building and approved parking lot at this point. And so they're asking for, part of it is maybe allowing them to use a non-approved parking lot. Am I paraphrasing fairly accurate?
You got something marked over here east of the building.
That's that vacant lot right
Yeah, I
there.
know, is that, you have parking in there?
I'll let you guys speak to what you guys want to do.
Tell us about what you want to do.
Well, we'd like to, because we don't know
Could you
how,
identify yourself, please?
my name is Denise Fischel. I am a co-owner of Parkwest and also the newly acquired property at 1022. We have a church that wants to lease for us, but they don't know how long will be big enough. And so we wanted, if it becomes more than 2 years, we will pave the parking lot appropriately. Temporarily, until we know what they want to do, we'd like to just put gravel in that vacant lot.
Okay, you're talking about the vacant lot to the east of you?
To the east, yep, that we also own, yes.
And also, you know, they talked about, my understanding is you could use the Parkwest parking lot.
We're not open on Sundays at CarQuest, and then poured a very large pad so that there would be handicap parking immediately accessible to the church right outside the front door.
What do you think, folks?
Does it make sense to do like a renewal every year or something?
Could do that. This is strictly yours.
Well, in the past, I remember times when they talked about a few years, and
Mhm.
people find what a few years meant, so. I think that, if you monitor it, it makes more sense.
Would you have a problem with that if we put a year's, come back and tell us what's happening next year?
Absolutely not, that'd be fine.
Do I hear a motion to the same?
Based on that, I would make a motion to recommend the plan approval.
With the year, come back in a year and tell us.
Is that a conditional use?
No,
No,
it's just a discretion as the planning commission has, you know, they have to approve approval of plans within.
The commercial
Commercial
district.
Yeah, well,
What are you?
we're approving them to use the area as a church and to use gravel parking lot instead of a
Party, bar. Street parking,
Yeah, they would
They're
have,
asking for an exception,
Yeah.
as long as they maybe want to,
yeah.
for a year.
How about lighting?
Lighting.
You're not gonna light it, are you, the parking lot?
No, but there is a city light already on that vacant lot,
It's right on the corner there.
right on the corner, yes.
Yep, not made motion. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
I'd just like to add that Marius and I did view it. They had some additional firewalls they had to put in. They got 2 exits. Less than 50 occupancy, looks like they're still better there, and we didn't have a problem with it. It's about 1,100 square feet, so relatively small.
And that was someone next year, what's going on? And you'll keep track of it. I'll keep you
Put
reminded.
a flyer on, Jeff, so we'll be back in a year, see us how it's going.
All right. You heard the motion, you heard the discussion. I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Vote same sign. Yep. Motion is carried. Next item. Final approval. 1620 South Bird, Zone Highway Business.
Okay, well, this will be relating to the proposed taxation district when it comes. But again, any building permit being required in a commercial district does require planning commission approval. And so you should have, on page 14, you can see a site plan. Page 15 is probably a little bit more of a detail of what they're doing. And on page 16 is an elevation. And I do have colored version of that, if anybody wishes to see them. I got a couple more here that, if anybody wishes to see them as well. So, again, this is exclusively the planning commission. Yeah, it's what you saw probably 2 weeks ago, but, so there's a couple different motions. One, this is just approving,
The plan.
issuing the building permit.
And the building. Give me a couple of seconds,
Well, I think we definitely improvement over what's there, I'm not motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion. And a second to approve the plan.
No variance.
No, looks like everything in the zone highway business district, it appears they have, enough parking and.
None yet.
You get a second?
I have a long.
Okay. I have a same sign. Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda. If, number 21.
Okay, I'll get some background here. I see Attorney Peterson is going to be representing the applicants. I just wanted to make sure that you did receive the project plan that is submitted to you, as well as the tax income and financing ordinance that is in our city code, as well as you should have received tax income and finance committee minutes as background. And this one is obviously dealing with the property that you just approved your building plan for. So with that, Mr. Peterson is here. I'll let him.
Before Don starts, I would like to point out something. I asked Neil, Finance Department, to furnish us a copy, and I think that page was laying on your table this morning, of what the bonding issues that the city has and what tips are out there that are still hanging. And if you look up the top of them, you'll see that the first one that is showing there is AKG's, and that was paid off in 2013, and that is TID number 4. So we're looking at number 21, and we have the first 4 already paid. That goes back to prior to 2003. I believe the first one that we did, if I remember right, was graphic packaging. And that's been for a while. We are paid off up to number 5. 5 is, there's not a lot left on 5 to pay off. 6 must be paid off because it doesn't show up.
Well, that's the one. That's Winchester, the one, 6, and then 7.
And then it moves to 7. 8's still hanging out there, 9 is still hanging out there, and so on. So, but there are several that are paid down quite a ways. You'll notice that too, further on down the list there. And then, of course, there's the other bonds that the city has in that list, and I thought you all might be interested in seeing that information. So, with that comment, Mr. Peterson, talk to us.
Thank you. My name is Don Peterson. I'm an attorney, and I represent the developers, Kelly and Emily Hone, who are here and can also answer any questions that you may have. I know that Neil has sent everyone out a copy of the proposed project plan, together with the minutes from the TIF committee. I'll go through a little background. Please stop and answer or ask any questions that you would have. Basically, this is to cover the old Happy Chef area, the plan, the building plans that you guys just approved. This would be city TIF number 21, and the major reason why the Hones are asking for a TIF here are twofold. One, when TIFs were created back in the 1970s or 1980s, they started in Illinois and then caught on. The purpose was to take care of dilapidated areas, places where there was blighted areas that could be torn down, and assistance in getting those restarted. We think that this TIF qualifies for consideration by the city really under two different main headings. One is, if this was the very first TIF that we ever brought toward you, this is the reason TIFs were made. Sitting out there was a building that was built in 1970 or 1971. It was a concrete block, a flat roof, restaurant. Hadn't been occupied in over 6 years. All the restaurant equipment had been stripped out of there by the prior owner. It was falling into disrepair, and as set out in the blight study that I'll get to in a little bit, really fit the statutory definition of blight. I mean, if there was if that was the only reason that we were here, we would believe that the city would have a great interest in seeing the major gateway to the city, the major exchange off the interstate, getting rid of a dilapidated old building that just sits empty. The second reason why we think the TIF is so important is that the City Council, the Chamber of Commerce, have for a number of years thought it'd be extremely important to have a full-time visitor center in Mitchell, something to replace the log cabin that had been out there. The Hones, in this instance, when they submitted their proposal to buy the property from the Development Corporation, indicated that they would allow the chamber or the city to operate a public visitor center, and would actually build an additional 700 square feet in the building to accommodate that, and they would allow them to utilize that facility for 7 years rent-free. So Hones are building an additional 700 square feet approximately in the building, and they're also so they're going to incur those costs up front, and then they are also going to allow the chamber to operate the visitor center for 7 years with no rent, other than the CAM type charges, taxes, utilities, those type of things. Now, I know that the Daily Republic reported today that it's was something less than 500 square feet or something less than 600 square feet, and I checked with Kelly today, and that's in fact Pitts is here, the developer, the builder's here, but it is approximately 700 square feet, so that was inaccurately reported in the paper. Starting on page 7, then of the project plan, the developer is asking the TIF to be structured as a developer finance TIF, which means that the developer will go out and obtain its own financing. The city will not go out and have to bond for the project. That makes us a little bit less expensive. And they're looking at a TIF in the amount of $320,000. Now, they're only asking for TIF funds for, one, the demolition of the old building, two, the demolition and resurfacing of the parking lot, and then also assistance in the easement area that allows ingress and egress out of there. In addition to that, they are also asking TIF funds to be utilized solely for that part of the building that would be utilized for the public visitor center, not for any of the other suites there. But and so that's how we figured out. We took the number of square feet, which is approximately 14,000, took the average price per square foot that Pitts gave us, and then took that by 700 to come up with that dollar amount. The cost that the Hones are putting into the structure is approximately $1.5 million, and so when in looking at that and trying to come up with whether or not there's enough increment to be utilized to build it, Davison County, of course, uses a factor when determining taxable value. So if we start with a new building that costs approximately $1.5 million, we have to take that times the factor, which is 0.911. Which then gives us a taxable value of $1,366,500. However, we then had to deduct another $100,000, so our math looks a little fuzzy. But the reason why is that we're tearing down a building that's tax assessed at about $100,000. So we have to take account into that. We're not going to get all new, so we had to take another $100,000 off. So if you go over to page 15. Although we're asking that the TIF be structured as a grant, which is a TIF eligible expense, we wanted to show to the Planning Commission and to the council the amounts that were that the TIF funds would be utilized. So the building construction, the actual costs approximately about $1.5 million. The TIF request is $72,506, and again, that's simply to offset the costs of the public visitor center. We got professional fees, which include engineering, legal and other types of architectural, other type of professional fees, capitalized interest, and then we have the building demolition at $48,000, parking lot demolition at $9,000, easement improvements, and then a contingency fund. To be able to demonstrate the need for a TIF, the developer, we have to show that either one, there was an economic purpose, or two, that there's blight. Schedules 3 and 3A, if you guys have had a chance to review those, Schedule 3 is an economic development study, which goes through and talks about basically the Chamber of Commerce did a study several years ago, and they recently updated it about what a public visitor center would do to the economic viability, or add to the economic viability of the city of Mitchell, and that's all in that schedule, and I won't go through that unless you would want me to, but it's all there for you to look at. Schedule 3A, the blight study. And again, we, as a developer under the law, we either have to show that there's blight or that there's economic development. And in this case, we believe there's both. The visitor center will help create and embellish the economic development within the city. The blight study, again, as we go through it, we have a building. We got a site that consists of 1.16 acres. It has some frontage on South Dakota Highway 37. However, part of that's a no-build zone, so that lot's really limited as to what type of things can go on it. The building was constructed as a Happy Chef restaurant in 1970. It sat vacant for 5+ years. It has so much deferred maintenance so as to make remodeling impracticable. It has a low 1970 style ceilings. Has had all the kitchen and restaurant equipment and fixtures torn out and removed by its prior owner. The HVAC, when they got in, was discovered to be inoperable and had been replaced in a remodel. After the purchase, the Hones got in and started doing their site prep and looking, and it was discovered that the sewer system was substandard, and so that is going to require some significant work as well, and some of the TIF funds will be used for that as well. Any questions on either blight or the economic development? Mark, do you know?
What part of which ditch? It angles somehow, it goes all the way across the front of the home. When they were locating it.
So it's Run and Bernie. It runs through. It goes in front of Graham's Mobile.
That's sanitary now?
Yeah.
Is that a city-owned line? Or a privately owned line, do we know?
It'd be city all the way until it branches off and goes into the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once it ends the property,
Yeah,
private.
right now it runs on.
So everything we're talking about here would be on private property.
Right.
We'll have to work that out, access with his neighbor.
Right. Well, and they've already done that.
Okay.
So, basically, what we're asking for then is a $320,000 TIF. The taxes we believe out there, with the phase-in, once it's taxed at 100%, will be about $31,000 a year. And so it would, over a 20-year lifespan, create about $523,000 in new increment out there, which would be more than enough to handle the $320,000 TIF. So the improvements out there will support the TIF. On page 18, we have an amortization schedule. And again, this is just just a model. We're showing 5% interest, which is, and we're showing that over the life of the TIF, it would pay off in 2028, which would be earlier than 20 years. However, when we apply for TIFs, there's one thing we don't know in the crystal ball is whether taxes go up, down. So basically, we just say that it can be up to 20 years, but it'll end when the TIF funds are paid off.
Don, are they have a TIF in the form of a bank note TIF?
Yes.
Versus bonds?
Yes, correct.
I don't know if is this the appropriate time to say it, but I'm working on an ordinance. I don't know if I'll have this meeting or not. It might run it by the plan commission. The plan commission is the recommending body to the city council, and we've got this preliminary committee. And I think I sat on it one time years ago when I was first appointed as city attorney in this round, and hadn't really given it much thought. Since then, it occurred to me that I'm the legal advisor to the city. I shouldn't be voting on the merits of a project. Does that make sense to you? I shouldn't be voting on the merits of a project if I'm going to give legal advice to the city. And I suspect that that's probably the same feeling that the finance officer would have. She would say whether or not we have room, or what our room and our parameters are, our financial parameters are, or why she would want to vote on whether this is a deserving project or not a deserving project, loses me also. So after discussing it with the city administrator, she agreed that I shouldn't be voting and advising simultaneously. And but to the extent that we have that TIF committee, yeah, I think we're on the same page on this. It should be a vetting process and go through the application, make sure that all the application is complete, or if it's incomplete, and if they believe that the planning commission should have more information, they can either deliver the information or the committee can relate to the planning commission that it believes more information should be obtained. But in my view, which I don't think is rocket science by any means, the recommendation, you should start from square one without an encumbrance of a prior deep ad hoc, or not, it's not an ad hoc committee, it's actually created by ordinance, committee, giving you a recommendation, giving you, the planning commission, a recommendation on the merits as to whether this is a deserving project or not a deserving project, or that deserving project, the positive or negative, whether it's a deserving project, should start here. You shouldn't come encumbered by what I think, and in the process of that, we can, the various school board.
Let me, I think that what Carl is talking about is something that is very relevant to the planning commission and deserves your consideration. I'd rather not do it during the course of this.
Okay. That sounds fine with me, Mayor.
I think, I'll put my 2 cents worth in on this. I've been on this planning commission longer than anybody else sitting in this room. And one of the reasons that we recommended, and I think this TIF committee, and Don's been around a long time, and I think one of the reasons we recommended that this TIF committee be formed is to work like a grand jury. Is there enough evidence in that original application for us to determine whether it should proceed?
Sure.
And just like the city council member sits on this planning commission as an ex officio, our thoughts at the time when we discussed that was that the city attorney and the finance officer actually would be ex officio, but that's not how it came down. But in our initial discussions, and Don, I think you were in on the initial discussion too, if you remember right, that's kind of what we talked about. But as you said, let's go on with this issue and then we'll talk about that.
That's the best idea. I just thought I said. Because it did come with a recommendation.
Go ahead, Mr. Peters.
Okay.
We'll deal with that later.
So I'll open it up to up to any questions that, any,
I got one question, I think it's clear, but I think that we should all know, is, on page 15, we've got the actual estimated construction cost.
yes.
And on the TIF request, the only thing on it that's proportioned is the area the chamber's occupying, that first item, the 72,000.
That's correct.
Everything else you've dumped over in TIF.
Well, yes, the professional fees, capitalized interest and those things?
Yeah, the rest of the list,
Yes,
okay, just so everybody realizes.
right.
The building demolition is the major aspect here, but the capitalized interest, that has to be there.
Well, and let me back up there. In the days before, you could come in and ask for a grant for a TIF. You had to have specific TIF eligible expenses. And a TIF eligible expense is demolition costs. So it wouldn't have to be just 700 feet of the demolition cost. What I'm saying is if we weren't putting a visitor center in this facility, an eligible TIF expense would be the demolition of the entire site on 100%, under the statutes, under South Dakota law. That doesn't mean that you have to do that, but under South Dakota law, demolition costs, financing costs, site prep, which we don't have any site prep included in here, but all those things would be eligible TIF expenses. So whether or not we were doing the public infrastructure, I think I can make a good argument on behalf of the developer that no matter what you're putting out there, you're taking a building that has outlived its useful life, and you're demolishing it and you're replacing it with a newer structure that's going to be inviting and look good to the folks coming into Mitchell, getting the first impression of the city.
Okay, one other question. They're gonna rebuild Burr Street, as I understand it.
Mhm.
And has this access been coordinated with the proposed plans?
I think it has. Kelly, do you want to address
They're
that?
still gonna keep, if you're coming from the south, there's still gonna be the direct right-in right there. As of the up-to-date plans from the DOT that I've seen. And to go left out from there, I believe you're gonna have to turn and go north up the service road to the front of Donnie's gas station to do a left-hand turn out.
Okay, well, as long as it's been coordinated, that would.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, and the other question.
I don't have a question, I have a comment, of course.
Your ex officio.
I read through all this paperwork and that sort of stuff, and personally, from what I'm reading, and I'm just speaking from me, and if I was voting today on the council, I was just saying how I would vote. On section 263, number 4, is on page 5 of 8. Oh, no, it's on the document that we have handed out as far as the TIF projects, action financing was handed out. Yes. I go through that criteria and I really struggle to make those fit. And we must meet 2 of those. And this is the one I worked against another TIF in another location, and I still have a real tough time with the project, I believe you bought the land. I really like the idea that you're doing this, I really do. The one demolition is done. Demolition would have been done whether they gave them a TIF or not. So I really have trouble with that section of it. And also speaking as a city councilman, I look at our TIF, when it's available, you probably don't have to consider that when you're bringing it forward, is that I look at our debt, and yes, we have the money available, however, I believe right now we have too many TIFs, too many dollars tied up in TIFs according to our debt. We're at 28% of our debt right now is in TIFs. Is that what we want to do as a city? so, like I said, I'm just letting you know straightforward, that this is where I'm at, is I would not, as a councilman, would not vote for any of the
I guess that's one thing I was noticing, in item number 4, you must meet 2 of the following 6, and I, in my opinion, 1.
Well, when we met, Bob, when we met with the committee, we actually met a lot more than that. One is, the Hones have committed to go forward with the project. However, it's still an open question as to whether or not the project's economically feasible with or without the TIF. Without the TIF, they're gonna go forward, but that doesn't mean that it's economically feasible to do so.
I guess the way I look at it is if you're going forward with it, it becomes economically.
Well, they still haven't cemented all the financing, so they're moving forward kind of under the, I think a little bit, like the Morris Construction was, is we think that the city will do the right thing. Particularly, all throughout it, we've got pretty good support because the city thinks that it's really important that there's a public visitor center. Based on that, Hones put an additional 700 square feet into that building that wouldn't have to be there if that wasn't the case. And they also offered to give 7 years of free rent for it. And so I guess time will tell whether it's economically feasible, but I know that in putting those type of plans together, TIF funds were looked at as helping to defray some of those startup costs on that. The project will eliminate actual or potential hazard. Now, whether or not the TIF that building was there and that was a potential hazard, and now it's been torn down. But again, it's kind of like, well, we need to move forward because we got a short construction season. We believe that the city will do the right thing and create the TIF. But when the day the Hones bought that project, it posed a hazard because of that old building sitting there, and it would only got worse over time. People weren't going to buy that building and remodel it.
I think the building had the potential to become condemned or unsafe.
Right.
But I think at the time you bought it, it was not yet.
But all you have to show is the project will eliminate actual or potential hazard to the public. It will bring potentially new and expanded, but we didn't get into that one just because we don't, there's still a site there that has to be, or a suite that hasn't been filled yet. And so,
You do have competing businesses within Mitchell, so
well, C may not, although they're already there, there's already other fitness centers in town, and that fitness center is already in existence, it's just moving locations. So I don't know about that. And will it result in additional redevelopment? Well, remember, there's some suites there that aren't rented out, and we think that they'll be rented out with the addition. So we think we meet at least 3, 2 for sure.
expansion, it also talks about for every $10,000 of TIF money, there's 1 job created, and you've got 332 jobs that would be necessary to create before we award the TIF. Said I've read that,
that's in
frontwards and backwards and forwards. I'm trying to make it fit, but I just can't in my mind. That is listed back a
It's
little
on the
further,
next page.
where it talks about,
It's under the discretionary criteria.
Well, you don't have to meet all those, Randy.
understand that, but that's when they're talking, then I would support that I would make it one in the other area.
Okay.
I was trying to make it fit. Like I said, we have a lot of money, and this is what I have to do, because I take a look at what we have to have in the TIF. And if we get something, probably good. I just think we've got, until we get some other ones taken care of, I just really am gonna be, to be honest with you, I'm really gonna look at each TIF.
Well, the one thing you should probably look at, Randy, is you got to remember that TIFs aren't paid for out of the general fund, and And so they're paid out of the taxes that are generated at the site. And as long as the taxes are being paid, they're still being generated, that's the money that goes to pay off the TIF.
And what I look at is the total debt, available debt,
Right.
and what we've got tied up, and that's where I'm really struggling both ways. So they probably don't have to look at the dollar, I do.
I might add that I share Randy's concern for our bonding limitations. When we took out the 13.9 million to finance the 4 projects that we proposed, we had about $20 million of bonding capacity, and after we took out that nearly $14 million, we reduced it down to 5. Well, we don't have by statute amount that we have to limit ourselves to, but the council has chosen $5 million as the bottom line that we were not going to go below. Since that time, we've improved that, and we're now up to nearly $8 million. And we're going to continue to improve that as we pay some of these off. I think that we as the city, the state, we have very limited ways of creating economic development and assisting new businesses, and TIFs are one of those. This one insignificant, and I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware that we're going to expand that number as those TIFs are paid off. So I think that this TIF is something that should be approved.
Let me interject something here. I think our role as the planning commission is to not take a look at whether or not the city can afford this. That's up to the council to decide. And that's fine. They can go do what they think they need to do. What we need to do is take a look at the criteria, the plan, and the proposed repayment schedule. And if we think that meets the criteria as outlined in the state statute and the city code, then we need to go ahead and make our decision. And I think that's where we're at right now, and we are discussing, the discretionary